Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans, Columbus Blue Jacket fans. Are there still any out there?
Wow.
Across the nation and around the world.
Gut punch.
This is the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. Man, it's great when I have Clay in here 2 days in a row, or 2 shows in a row. I don't have to hesitate and name who the guest star is. But Clay, man, number one, Ohio State's wrapping up spring practice. They had practice number 13 today, as we figured out, right? On the fly, as we recorded the Clay May report. And, you know, things are looking rosy for the Ohio State Buckeyes, right? Because they don't have to play anybody until September and don't have to play really anybody until the second week of September.
That's right.
When they go to Texas for the showdown number 3 with Ohio State, Texas. But going back to the national championship playoff semifinal game 2 years ago, and then the game, the season opener last year in the shoe. That started at high noon and Ohio State prevailed, whatever. We're not going to talk about that game. We're going to talk about the 2 games at the end of the year.
Yep.
Basically focusing on what happened to the offensive line the last 2 games of the year, which were the 2 losses when Ohio State's high-flying offense went splat on the runway and, couldn't muster enough points, which means they couldn't block well enough in some form or fashion. Or maybe even call plays well enough in some form or fashion to get over the hump. I mean, when you only score 13 points,
not going to win.
You're not going to win many football games, no matter what. But those, of course, were in the Big Ten championship game against Indiana, and then the Miami quarterfinal, college football playoff quarterfinal game, when they they put themselves in predictable situations when it came to throwing the ball, and then Miami's front 4, led by Reuben Bain and a couple other guys.
Messador.
Messador. Wow. He should be tattooed on everybody's helmet this spring at Ohio State. Ohio State couldn't handle them on a consistent basis and couldn't muster the points when they needed them. But anyway, we're going to talk about that in a minute because we got to talk to Tyler Bowen today at Ohio State's football practice, along with a couple of offensive linemen. But I'm pretty much going to focus on Tyler Bowen, who we don't get to talk to very often. And he is of course, the offensive line coach going into his 3rd season. No, what season is this? I'll think of it in a minute. But the bottom line is.
No, it's 2.
Yeah.
I believe it's
2.
But
But the bottom line is they just weren't good enough on the offensive front. They lost a couple of guys, especially in the Miami game. But they feel really good about the way things are trending from a depth standpoint, with Austin Serveld and Phillip Daniels having to miss the spring, at least the big contact parts of spring, because of little touch-up surgeries, scope surgeries they had to go through in the middle of spring. A lot of guys have had to step up, not the least of whom is Ian Moore at left tackle, seen a lot of time there. Gabe Van Sickle, who got his first real start in college football against Miami last year and was basically taken out of the game because things weren't working out. As that game ensued.
Translation.
Yeah. But anyway.
Carter Lowe's another guy.
Yeah, and Carter Lowe at right tackle is getting a lot of time, but even Gabe Van Sickle is a leaner, meaner version of himself than the last time. Whatever doesn't kill you makes you better is the old credo. And that definitely offensive line is taking that credo going into this spring and is practicing like it. So we'll get into some of that in a minute.
Okay.
But, I'm listening to the Rick Bowness post-game rant. I don't know if rant's the right word. Post-game steam let off.
Yeah.
The interim head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets who failed to make the playoffs. That was after Rick Bowness showed up. The first several parts of that show up, the Blue Jackets went what?
Yeah, at one point, 20 wins, 3 losses, and then 4 losses in overtime, 23-4, which was a streak that just took them out of the basement and made them a factor. And people began to, oh my gosh, we can make a run at this thing.
And then what happened?
And then
after the All-Star, after the Olympic hockey break,
as my buddy Rothman said the other day, the skates fell off.
They went dull. I think more like the skates went dull. Go ahead.
Yeah, and they finished 2-7-1 to wrap the season, which
meant that by wrap the season, which meant what?
They were 4 points shy
of making the playoffs.
Because the Flyers won their last 2 games.
You don't have to get into all those details, but you're right.
Alrighty then.
No, I'm just messing with you.
I know.
Two wins over Boston instead of 2 losses to Boston would have changed the whole scheme.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
No, just the which precipitated the Rick Bowness. It's interesting the way he said that last night. If I'm back, the culture will change, and you'll hear several cuts here. Also from GM Don Waddell Waddell said he came into the room and I knew something was about to happen because he was so
upset,
fired up, and sometimes you just got to let it out. And I caught Zach Werenski on the radio coming over to the studio, and he said, I've had a talk with Coach, and we're good, but don't let anybody tell you what he said detours us. We love Bones. We love playing for Bones. We hope he's back. So, and Werenski, Zach said, between Boone and I, and Herbie pointed this out, he's Mr. Football, but he's a Blue Jacket fan. And
leaders of the team.
Yeah, after Foligno and Cam and Bobrovsky and other Artemi Panarin, he didn't feel like there was any consistency in effort or leadership. And Zach was saying, this is all I do. This is the only team I've played for. I care. Boone and I, we were the only ones left here when the exodus occurred. So don't get it twisted, I think is what he's saying. And he comes off not only sincere, but he's more of a quiet guy. But he was trying to get his point across. Listen, for Rick to say that about, and we should play this so they have all the
no, but go ahead and finish your thought. For Rick to say that, what?
That he was caught up in the emotion.
Yeah, he was.
Because he knows how Boone and I, and he goes, I'm not going to talk for every player in here, et cetera. But Zach's a hell of a guy and a hell of a player and might be the best defenseman in this league. He's first, second, or third. And he's put together, I think, 2 80-point seasons, something like that, which is incredible. And I may be off there, and I apologize because I don't staff the team on a regular basis. But at any rate, you're going to hear Rick Bowness as he kind of unburdens himself.
Here's the bottom line. And this is where I agree with Kirk Herbstreit. That's who you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that there was a lack of consistent intensity down the stretch. There was. You could see it in the games. One period they come out, I'm not going to cite specific games because they get them all mixed up in my head.
Yeah.
Come out in the first period and they dominate from an intensity standpoint.
Yeah.
They take it to them. It kind of reminded me of the Canada-U.S. hockey gold medal game where Canada just seemed to have an edge to it, but they couldn't get that goal that put them over the top, and the United States did get the goal that mattered. There was such an enthusiasm for hockey in this town coming out of that Olympic gold medal winning effort because their guy, Zach Werenski, was part and parcel to that victory.
Came home
and he was playing for the Blue Jackets. But pretty much from the Olympic break on, the intensity, and it was there a few nights, but the intensity from a consistent standpoint, you could almost say consistent intensity, sounds kind of cool when you say it like that, was lacking from a period to period basis and sometimes even in whole games. So that's what, when you're in the midst of it, like he and Boone Jenner are, and you're the guys kind of in charge of making sure the room is ready to go. Because that is the captain's very first job as a captain. Forget about calling the coin toss at midfield in football or anything else. Your job is to get the room ready to go and hold people accountable when they show up and they aren't ready to go, or then post game when it was obvious they weren't ready to go. I'm not saying that's the reason they're not in the playoffs, but clearly 2 games go the other direction and they're in the playoffs.
That's
number
it.
one.
Yep.
But number two, that's the captain's job. The head coach doesn't have a seat in the locker room where he sits 24/7 and judges things. And so you're not throwing it on the captain's feet either, because individually in a pro sport, it comes down to individuals doing their job, as Bill Belichick so aptly put it when he was winning 6 Super Bowls or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Individuals doing their job on a consistent basis in a grown man sport. And that's tough sometimes. But, hockey is such a haphazard game. It's ridiculous about where goals come from. So many of them emanate from chaos. And all of a sudden the goal goes by a guy, or the puck goes by the goalie and it's in, just like a slap shot from the point, a little dribble in the crease, and the puck goes by. You can't do anything about that. What you do control is the intensity with which you play. And what Rick Bowness talks about post game in this rant, we're going to play you the parts of it. Rant may not be the right word, just a bearing of his soul about what he's been holding in. Maybe you figure he's been communicating this with the players and they just didn't quite get it. But I'm sure what drove him nuts about their season-ending game was it was for nothing.
Yeah.
And the Blue Jackets sort of played like it. And that's not a pro approach. It was, okay, the season was over when they were eliminated the 2 days before or the day before, when they had no chance of making it in their home finale. But the fact they lost their last 6 or 7 straight home games?
0-4-1. So none of them in the left column. And
bottom line is you can't. That's tough to win in any.
Yeah.
To make it in anywhere.
Nobody
in
has
any sport.
That. Yeah. Nobody
but
has.
The point is
the
stats that he cites are great examples of the lack of intensity by the team, which has nothing to do with goals scored, but helps produce goals. And so we'll just hear what he kind of had to say, being prodded by a friend of this program for sure, and one of my good buddies, Aaron Porchline of The Athletic, is glad to hear The Athletic getting some positive press in the last week or so. Yeah. But anyway, let's start off with Bowness talking about the frustration of last night.
Rick, you've been a part of a lot of games and a lot of seasons. Have you ever been part of something that's as frustrating as this has been down the stretch?
You hear that?
No. And you know what? All you got to do is look at the stat sheet. 3 hits, 23 giveaways. Like, I don't know if I'm back, but if I'm back, I'm changing this culture. These guys, they don't care. Losing is not important enough to them. It doesn't bother them. Like, how can you go out and play like that? Should have done this about a month ago. But this is why we are where we are. This is why we're out of the playoffs. That kind of effort. Losing, you have to hate losing. I don't care if it's a meaningless game. I don't care. Show up and compete. 3 hits, 23 giveaways. What else you want to know?
Dude, that stat sums it up.
It does.
Of lack of aggressiveness, intensity, whatever you want to call it. Just don't call it late for lunch. No, I'm just joking. Bottom line is that was it. And that was your final. See, here's the thing.
That's your
That was your going away gift,
right,
to the fans of Columbus.
Well said.
The fans of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I have always felt this about the Blue Jackets. I was an advocate for Columbus getting into the NHL many, many years ago. It finally came to fruition because that was a pro sport that wouldn't take away from. By take away, it was different. It wasn't basketball, and it definitely wasn't football. But it would be that pro sport that could come to town that people could get behind, and then keep building that fandom. And I felt like a soothsayer, if that's the right term, or forecaster, or whatever you want to call it, because that's finally what happened. They built them a very nice building to play in, Nationwide Arena. And but what it's kind of turned into, it's kind of like having let's say a town doesn't have an orchestra or a ballet company. It's kind of turned into that winter thing to go see, or at least that's what it has turned into. I'm not saying that's the way their fans, they're super fans treat it, but it's like that interim between Ohio State football season and Ohio State football season. Well, that thing in the fall and winter and early spring, which takes up the time and gets you ready, to look forward to the big game in town, which is Ohio State football. And with occasion, that's one of the big failings of Ohio State basketball right now is that was its niche. And it also has lost that niche. But the thing about it is a lot of those fans probably were there to cheer them on to victory. You didn't get to where you wanted to go, but we're still behind you. And that's the effort they got. Yeah. That's how they were rewarded. The old Jerry Seinfeld show where Elaine got the ladies in the what's it called when you get your fingernails done? The manicurist got them tickets to a Broadway show, and they get there. And by the way, appearing tonight, Bette Midler is sidelined. Appearing tonight, and the lady goes, "No, Bette Midler." That was kind of, I would think all the fans felt that way leaving the building. Yeah. No Columbus Blue Jackets with Edge. Yeah. But they hadn't had the Edge at home for like 7 straight games.
No, but you're right. They found their niche along the way. 25 years. And some people in this town swear by that franchise. And yet they've kind of been raked through the coals. The other day, they were starting the Rothman show on the radio, and the update guy says, for 19 of the last 25 years, no playoffs for the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, that's pitiful because almost half the league makes the playoffs.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway,
painful. And I'm very, very curious to see how this plays out now. If they bring the coach back, Bob McElligott said the other day, he goes, I hope they get this done.
Yeah, let's get to that in a minute. Let's get to what Bowness had to say about losing at home and stuff, because, this is all good stuff.
I think even in the long history of this franchise, I don't think they've ever lost 6 games in a row to end a season at home.
No.
Is that worse?
It's terrible. Inexcusable. If they're not embarrassed by, not only tonight, by that, they're on the wrong team. They are. They got to be embarrassed with that. Anything else?
Yeah, that's what we just talked about. You got to be embarrassed by that. That was your swan song. What a swan song. What an encore.
Yeah.
Imagine if Queen, back in his heyday, came out and played that as their encore. They were brought back by the cheers of the crowd, and then they played some. I don't remember what their worst song was, because I still am a big fan of Queen. But imagine that was your encore. That stunk. That meant most of the equipment was already on the bus, but you brought back your tambourine and couldn't move the drums that quick. And Brian May, they handed him a ukulele instead of a lead guitar. That's and of course, then Freddie Mercury doesn't sing any high notes in the encore, just moves on.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah. It's painful.
Let's get what Coach Bowness had to say about tough. And
because it got tough, because it got hard, like we talked about after the Olympic break, it's going to get harder. So everything is good as long as it's going their way. And now it gets tough. We don't want to battle back, and that's what's happened over the last a couple of weeks. That's all that's happened. We're going to change that. If I'm back, I don't know if I'm back. Don and I will talk. We'll get to that. But man, oh man, some of those guys are so lucky the season's over and there's no practice tomorrow. Anyways, and there's no more games. What else you want to know?
Yeah, well, let's get quickly to what Don Waddell, the general manager, had to say on 97.1 The Fan this morning, because he does a shot. Who is that? Was that with that's with
T-Bone? Is
that with T-Bone and
Tyvis
Powell? Yeah, let's get what he said. Number one about Bowness, about whether Bowness will be back, because Bowness is an interim head coach. He was brought in to change things, and boy, did he.
Yeah.
At the beginning, boy, did anybody like the formula. But like Bowness is pointing out, the last 10 games of the season, everybody's fighting for something, or not fighting.
It's so odd because the players, almost to a man, you heard them after the arrival of Bowness, they said, he's always in communication. He's always in our ear. And they like that.
Yeah, but
somewhere along the line,
eventually, like with my kids and even my grandsons, you can tell them what to expect when they go to the plate. But now you still got to swing the bat and get the hit.
Yeah.
And that's what was lacking. Let's hear what Don Waddell, though, said about Bowness. Because, obviously he likes the guy. He brought him. It was the answer for a while.
Out. Yeah.
Yeah, from my end, obviously I will meet with my boss and people above me once I have that conversation with Rick. But from my end as the general manager, watching the work that he put into this and how he got this team going, I supported 100%.
Yeah. How could you not? I mean, because, boy, there was a lot to cheer about at Nationwide.
Yeah, it was a nice run.
For a long time there.
Heck of a run.
And but let's say Bowness comes back.
Okay.
What are you going to change? What does he just said he wants to change?
Well,
let's get to that right now.
Okay.
And then you can comment with your salient comments.
Well, we scratched the itch. I'm going to talk to Don, as we said from there, right? But and the players were told tonight, if I'm back, we're changing this freaking culture. And we are. What do you got?
There you go.
Well, with the culture, do you change the roster too? Tim, I've always felt.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you got to bring something new in.
That's it. I've always felt this was the little engine that could when they did progress or did win. And I always felt like they were playing with less talent. And so they had to play 100,000,000%.
Yeah, but that gets to old.
No,
dude, they've been around. I mean, I'm not arguing with you.
Yeah.
They've been here 25, 26 years. That's a quarter of a century.
Yeah.
And it's time to pay up. There was 1 year when they really were close to doing something big, period.
Beat Tampa Bay, swept them.
Period.
And then lost to Boston.
I mean, nobody would tolerate that. Who tolerates that? If you give a damn about winning and losing, if it's not just about selling tickets and making money on merch. I like saying merch. I work the merch tent, at the U.S. Open every year.
Cool.
By the way, you and I would love that concession.
Yes.
But
yes.
But it's about so much more than that, or else why are you doing it? That's what I said. The ballet, you can you can dance different ballets, but they're all pre choreographed, and you pretty much do the same thing every night for 4 or 5 straight weeks, or ever how long a ballet run goes. And there's no drama to it unless somebody falls, or somebody breaks their toe. God forbid you break your toe in a ballet dancer. But you understand what I'm saying? Sports is about being surprised by what you see.
Of course.
And it's about being surprised in a good way, which, by the way, is what I wanted to discuss with you about.
Well,
if you're looking for somebody to come in and change the culture. Now, this guy didn't have to bring in the idea that it is important to win. I'm talking about Ohio State football. He did not have to bring in the idea that it was important to win, because Ohio State football, 19 times out of 20 or 49 times out of 50 has always won a winning season. And in many respects has won on a big time way, on a big time stage.
Sure.
But when Urban Meyer came in, Urban Meyer was different from Jim Trussell, who, of course, was forced to resign after the 2010 season, actually just before the 2011 season, if you count the day after the Indianapolis 500, just before the season started. Luke Fickell came in, didn't really have a shot, really, to prove himself as the interim coach when you considered his stars were all suspended, some of them for 5 games. His quarterback walked out and didn't testify in front of the NCAA. And anyway, but the point is, Urban Meyer didn't just walk in and sort of rearrange the chairs in the meeting room.
Oh, no.
Urban Meyer came in with his right boot fully sharpened. The toe in his right boot fully sharpened.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what you've done. Nobody cares. And by the way, last year you had a losing record, 6-7. Things are going to be different. And this was the day after they lost to Florida in the Gator Bowl.
Wow.
And from day one, he set a new agenda about what the expectations were. And then on top of that, but he took all those guys who came back. Remember, the big deal was how many guys stayed for Urban Meyer. And Zach Boren was one of those guys that stayed, but was sort of a holdout to a certain extent about really buying into the Urban Meyer way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
But Urban figured out too, boy, I get a guy like Zach Boren rowing the boat the direction we want to go. We got something going. Of course, they moved him to linebacker.
Gave him a big role.
Well, not just, but he was a hell of a player.
Yeah.
And Urban Meyer recognized that. That's the guy you want on the field. Every play, you can get him on the field. And he built the culture from the inside out. Big on that. Huge was Mick Marotti coming with him, leaving Florida, because obviously Urban did not have a job the previous season. So he was stuck. I called it, a lot of people said he retired then. I said, it turns out he was on a big sabbatical.
Right.
He was going to change some things about the way he played offense to hurry up. He was already a spread guy, but the hurry up, which he got from Oregon, really was a Chip Kelly fan in that regard. But the main thing he brought in was that steel-toed boot. And the steel-toed boot cut all kinds of directions.
Oh, buddy.
No, it was players and coaches.
Yeah.
His expectations for his coaches was probably higher than his expectations for his players, meaning about getting the job done, or we'll know the reason why. Remember the fight song, one of the fight songs?
That's it.
But the bottom line is, the thing I always liked about Urban Meyer, I'm not sure people who didn't get to know him a little bit better didn't quite understand, is he was, first of all, he wanted to know what your button was or buttons were. And then he was going to press the buttons you didn't like getting pressed.
That's where
whether
that
you were a
psychology
coach
came in,
or whether you were a coach or a player or a trainer or whatever, he liked to push buttons. Of course, that doesn't make him lovable. That didn't make him, that didn't endear him necessarily to most of the guys who came back. But when you look back on it finally, and 3 years later, you've got a national championship. My point is, that's culture. The culture is, we're going to be lovey-dovey. We're going to be all together. We're all in it. We all sit around and talk about what's up. You can do that till the cows come home. The thing is, you got to go out and show it every day. You're getting better, not getting worse. Because if you're not getting better, you are getting worse. That was what Urban Meyer demanded, was continual, constant improvement, but also constant feedback from the coaches, from the players down to their fellow players.
Mm-hmm.
He demanded constant improvement. That's culture, is when the entire room buys into it. They either buy into it or they move on.
That's it.
Because you're not going to play if you don't buy into it. And so, you can't necessarily do it that way in pro sports, because some guys have guaranteed contracts or whatever you want to call it. But the Urban Meyer way of doing things is what we're talking about here. If you're going to plant seeds of a culture, that's what Bowness is talking about. There were some things he probably sort of, looking back on it, I'm not speaking for him. I've never even spoken to Rick Bowness, but that he probably let slide because, number one, he was the interim coach. So that is a task unto itself. How do I approach this? Because these guys know, and even I know, there's a good chance I won't be back next year if you're an interim coach.
Mm-hmm.
That means you're the bus driver you had needed a break, and you changed bus drivers.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean they're not going to get a brand new bus driver who can carry the load for the next season. Rick Bowness is a year younger than me, but clearly his enthusiasm is there, his awareness. But you can only rock the boat so hard as an interim coach. And then when you've rocked that boat a little bit and that boat's sailing, which it was sailing.
Yes, it was.
Agreed?
Wind.
I mean, they were paddling hard. Forget about sailing. And then all of a sudden, when it all kind of starts falling apart on you, and you can see the little phrase, Frays, as it went on after the Olympics. And you've got to be playing a game in his head like, I've demanded this, this, and this. I've changed up some lines, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
Can I really, really, truly get into a couple of guys' faces and go, this is not good enough?
Well, I think you have to if you want the full-time job, and I think that's
no, but you do. That's my point. You don't feel free necessarily. You're not even necessarily playing for the full-time job. You're playing to get them to the playoffs.
True.
And what had worked, like he said, what had worked up to that point, the thing he's saying is we didn't get better. And from an intensity standpoint, they could have leveled off, but the other teams played with more intensity down the stretch as a whole. 2-7-1 speaks for itself.
Yeah. You notice that when they play a team like Carolina, who was leading the East, they just they're better, but they're relentless. And everybody at that time of year, and
every possession mattered.
And as he said it, after the break, boys, it's going to be unlike anything you've ever seen. When you're playing hockey every other day, you got to fight like hell to survive.
What was Urban Meyer's line about football? They're looking for grown ass men.
Yeah, don't want to coach average.
Yeah. But
like John Hicks, I remember him saying to me when Urban came in, and he said, it's pro football over there now, as if to say we're playing at a whole new level.
Expectations.
That's it. Because win or else, you won't be here very long if you don't win.
Yeah. And Urban's way is.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't live in that life. Maybe they are too content with losing, but I know they have a lot of freaking good dudes who will give everything. Olivier, Jenner, Wawrinski. I mean, we'll see who remains. But what I was saying the other
that's the other thing.
Let me interrupt about McElligott. He's hoping they name him in 2 or 3 days so he can get on. So these players will know, hey, buddy, this is the boss. This is what'll be expected.
Oh yeah, I mean you got to do that immediately. Whatever your deal is, you don't want a 30-day search for a new head coach either. You don't want to. I mean, if you're going to stick with Bowness, you got to pretty much do it now, and that's what Don Waddell was talking about.
Yep.
They're going to be meeting on it. Blah blah blah. Hey, let's play this little cut real quick.
Well, I kind of knew it was coming because we were in the coach's office before he did it. He was not a happy camper, and nobody was, and so I'm not surprised. But if you watch his press conference, he's speaking from his heart. It wasn't like he was faking anything. He was speaking his true feelings, and I respect that. It may not sit well with a lot of guys, but I think it was something that needed to be said, and I thought he handled it like I said, because you could see the real passion in his expressions, and if he didn't care, we wouldn't have had that kind of conversation. Obviously, but he cares, and that's the biggest part that from my end, he's very passionate about this job. He wants to win, and just felt that, we backed up. He said, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe that would have been the time. But, Bones is a very positive guy, and he just felt like the way he got these guys going was being the communicator and positive influence on them, and just didn't feel like when we were in a playoff chase that was the time to do it. So I think the expressions that he showed last night will go a long ways for us as we continue to try to build this thing to where we all want to get. That's obviously the playoffs.
Yeah, that should always be. Every NFL team should go into preseason camp with the goal is to win the Super Bowl. The goal is not to get to the Super Bowl.
That's it.
The goal is not to build and make the playoffs.
Right.
The goal has always got to be when you're playing in a professional league or college football now. See, college football has kind of screwed itself into a new hole now.
Yeah, buddy.
Because making the playoffs is going to be an achievement for some programs, but the very next year, now what do you do? Right. Especially with what Indiana has done. Kurt Cignetti comes in, and boom, they make the playoffs in the very first year of the 12-team playoff. They make the playoffs, get beat by Notre Dame, but then the very next year come back, change their starting quarterback, Really, that to me was the biggest change they made from a culture standpoint and a being able to play standpoint, and went all the way. And when the point is, Indiana has shown every major college football program out there, and every president of every college that has a major college football program, that yes, this can be done quickly.
Yeah.
The problem with the NHL is you can't just get rid of everybody in the room except 3 guys.
But
you can't, because who are you gonna play with?
No.
But you got to get rid of the guys who clearly down the stretch didn't give you what you had seen from them earlier.
But I like what you said. No, the deal isn't to get in the playoffs and be one of those 16. The deal is to win the damn cup.
Yeah.
And you've heard, and that's the way Yarmo, the former GM, used to manage this thing. And that's why he was all in that year and put all the chips on the table and made moves, because they're not trying to be the 8th playoff team. They're trying to
We're
win.
number 8. We're number 8.
We want to dance with that cup, man. That's what this is all about.
But the problem is you have to dance with the ones what brung you.
Timmy Joe.
Blast from the past.
Yeah.
I think actually Bear Bryant said that before. What's his face at Houston said it.
Yeah.
But anyway, the bottom line is there will be changes, clearly, no matter who, whether they, as we speak right now, there's been no announcement that Bowness is going to be brought back as the full-time head coach.
Yeah.
But there will be changes one way or the other, because you got to continue the chase.
Right.
Or at least, I hate to say this out loud, or at least make it look like you're chasing, right? Huh? I mean,
make it look like
what they finished. Did they finish 9th in the in that conference? Did they finish 9th?
I think,
so to speak.
I was looking.
No, I mean, I'm talking about figuratively speaking, not
right.
Literally. I don't care about literally.
They might have been,
because they were in it until the last. They had a shot, but I tell you what really killed them in the final analysis was our good buddy Dylan Davis, as I call it, Double D. Double down with Double D. He's a huge Boston Bruins fan for some unknown. Well, I know the reason, and he's talked about that on our show here when you were on your sabbaticals. You're once a week sabbatical, but boy, losing those 2 games to those guys, especially with the one where they were up 3-0 going into the 3rd period, which was the first of those 2 losses near the end of the season.
That was the most crushing.
That was crushing
of all of them.
They ended up getting a point,
3-0.
But the bottom line is you got to beat the guys that are ahead of you.
That's it.
Because that's the way you control your destiny. And then and beat Winnipeg, but whatever. I guess they did, but the bottom line is that is what it is.
That was a lot of hockey for Tim.
Yeah, it was. But in my opinion,
big story.
No, in my opinion, they intertwine. I mean, hockey and football are so alike in so many ways.
Well,
the physical,
passion.
but the physical nature of the sport, like we were talking about with the offensive linemen in Ohio State, their big deal. They're committed even more to being nasties, big nasties up front. Playing with violence and stuff, and so we're going to get into that in a second. But because I've got Tyler Bowen, the offensive line coach for Ohio State, just talking about some of those things when we got to talk to him today. But eventually going back to my question about those last 2 games, that it wasn't good enough. And we had just talked to Gabe Van Sickle at that same table. So I asked him about Gabe Van Sickle, who got the start against Texas because Tigger Shabola couldn't go. And in that quarterfinal game this past year, and start against Texas, against Miami, and couldn't go. And Gabe Van Sickle, clearly the lights were too bright for him in some form or fashion. And by the way, Gabe Van Sickle's talking about how he's leaned himself. You either learn from something or you just become a wallflower and go to transfer out of the kettle, which is Ohio State. The fire burning under the kettle burns constantly, and some can handle the heat, some can't. But he stuck around. Boy, he's chipper. He's ready to go. Gabe Van Sickle is having a decent spring by most people's measures. But the point was, first about him, what he learned in Tyler Bowen ends up answering that question, my second question first, which, I don't, that's the way it goes sometimes, but that's about Gabe Van Sickle, but it kind of speaks for the rest of the offensive line, because in the last 2 games of the year, the offensive line as a group. Because you may have a problem at right guard, but that's part of the group. That's your link in the chain. You drop the anchor, you drop the anchor from a ship and the 5th or the 3rd link breaks, you don't have an anchor.
Nope.
You may have all this chain, quality chain, but no anchor. So
you're adrift.
You are adrift. Hopefully not in the Strait of Hormuz. But that's an analogy for another day. But let's just get into Tyler Bowen, and we'll just discuss a few more things.
Lesson you think you guys learned offensive line wise from the last 2 games of last year? Obviously, Indiana was playing some games up front. Miami just threw the kitchen sink at you to a certain extent. What is the group? What do you think was learned from that? And how much? I'll ask the second question. How much does it help Gabe Van Sickle having gone through maybe that Miami game or?
I think they're both good questions. I'll answer the second one first. I think obviously anytime a player experiences things, right, and potentially from negative experience or positive experience, it's going to etch something in his mind, and you hope you're putting guys in a position where they're not going to make those same mistakes twice. And I'm surely think he learned a lot from his experiences later in the year, both playing in a good way at times and then having some plays he'd like back, right? I think you learn a couple things in that. Number one, as an offensive line, we had opportunities to play better on early downs to put ourselves in more advantageous situations so you don't have a pass rush teeing off on you, right? That's the number one thing. It all works together. The plays aren't, secluded in individual moments, right? The game gets played together. So obviously that, and I think, we know a big marching charge coming out of the off season is like we've got to be able to handle elite movement better, right? And that's something that we work on every day, but it's become more of a point of emphasis. We're building that into our practice plan more often than maybe we have in the past. It's just making that a point of emphasis. And there's a lot of things that go into that, but I think we can learn different things, right? We play better on early downs. You're not as in many of those situations, right? We got to be able to do that as an offensive line to keep our offense on track, right? So we're not getting behind the 8 ball in a situation where guys can pin their ears back. And then when guys pin their ears back, we've got to be good enough to be able to step up and get the quarterback time so we can go operate. So all those things are coming into play from a practice plan standpoint. Not that they weren't in the past, but there's some things that we're emphasizing more with this group.
Coach.
Yeah, it's funny because I love that thing about being able to handle elite movement, elite talent coming at you, like Ruben Bain. He was lining up like a track star,
way out
5 yards off the ball, off Phillip Daniels, and just charging. And for example, he's probably going to be a first-round draft pick. Ruben Bain is definitely. And the guy I always forget, Mesidor.
Yeah. Same
way inside. He was playing those games inside where he was just occasionally running right by people. And so that's where you judge a football team. Against Texas, Ohio State scored 14 points and won the game 14-7. Against in those last 2 games of the year, Ohio State's offense could not get to 20.
Right.
Couldn't even get to 15. That's not good enough.
No, shocking.
And it always comes down to the beginning of what sets things up. Is your offensive line? Is your offensive line dominating like Ohio State's offensive line did for the most part? I did through the 4 games of the playoffs the year before when they won the national championship. So they've got to get back to that. And so Tyler Bowen, he's the first guy to know that. It's like saying the sun is hot. I love saying that. But it's like saying the sun is hot. He knows. You don't want to get burned by it too often, though. So that's what they've been working on through the spring, just building depth, but not just depth, quality depth, guys that can play, guys that can go in there when your number 1 guy goes down and play like a number 1, a 1A, so to speak. But with Ian Moore and Carter Lowe at the tackles this spring, with, like we said, Austin Sierveld and Phillip Daniels, the 2 returning tackles, missing the contact portion of spring after getting some scope surgeries. Those guys have been a great learning experience for those guys. And like I told you, Mason Wilhelm, the son of Matt Wilhelm, friend of this show, appearer, if that's the correct term, on this show. Remember, he's going to be coming on this coming Monday after the spring game's over. What do you think? His son, Mason Wilhelm, like he was one of those guys before that conversation with Tyler Bowen started. He was talking about all the guys they have to amalgamate because they're coming out of high school. Usually the guys they recruit have been a tackle on their team
because they were the best players.
Because they were the best linemen on their teams.
Yeah.
And so getting those guys to buy into other positions is one of the challenges of college football. It's not like the pros where you draft tackles, and you draft guards for the most part. You can always mix and match, et cetera. But anyway, bottom line is that. But then I think it was my buddy Dom Taberry from Channel 10 followed up and asked, what has been the Arthur Smith influence on the offensive line play, on the offense, but especially offensive line play through the spring? And like we said, Arthur Smith was at Tennessee. Was at Tennessee with Mike Vrabel when they had Derrick Henry and did their things there. And then, of course, the last couple of years, then he became the head coach at Atlanta. That did work out for him as being the head coach. But that franchise had a lot of potholes to fill, kind of like after the snow plows get through in Columbus, Ohio every winter. There are some potholes to fill, some of them large, some of them small. But anyway, and he ends up with Pittsburgh last year as the offensive coordinator, working with Aaron Rodgers, et cetera. But I would say one of his strengths, definitely, you got to be an offensive coordinator and a head coach in the National Football League. You got to be strong in the passing and running game aspect of things. But one of his strengths definitely is the run game and getting things ship shape and stuff. But let's hear what Tyler Bowen said about the influence that Arthur Smith has brought to bear as the new offensive coordinator at Ohio State.
What's changed under Arthur Smith now as a coordinator, and especially when it comes to the run game?
Yeah, I think plays are the plays and runs are runs. Like, I think when you look at football, there's not a ton that anyone's doing that we can't point out and say, hey, that's this play or that's that play that you didn't have it in your offense. I think it's more so, I'd say, big picture right now, just really establishing an identity of how we're going to run the ball. Like, what are the plays in any game that we can hang our hat on, right? Not just game plan specific, but like, hey, these are, 10, 12, 15 core runs that we feel like we could put out against any front structure, any type of movement, and we're going to be able to run the ball. And I look at that as like we're able to hang our hat on something. And I think certainly we're trying to build that identity in the spring. It's a work in progress, but we'll continue that through summer and fall camp.
Of course, this isn't Saturday when people go to the spring game, not a finished product, number one. Number two, you're probably we'll see who the starting tackles are in the fall, because Austin Cervell's worked a lot at the two guard spots, and especially right guard in the spring, because Ian Moore has really come on at left tackle. So that might be your starting lineup there. Ian Moore, Luke Montgomery, Carson Hinsman, Austin Cervell, and Phillip Daniels at right tackle. Who knows? But so you won't necessarily see that. Well, you won't see that on Saturday.
No.
But what you're going to be watching are individuals as works in progress of playing as a whole. And you got to trust the right guard, whoever you put in at right guard, to be a strong link in that chain with the other four guys. And that's what you have to get to as an offensive line.
I liked what Carson Hinsman was asked about Arthur Smith as well. And he said Arthur Smith wants, in terms of blocking ability by this offensive line, he wants the ref clutching the flag but not throwing it. It's almost like the 4 to 6 A to B that Urban used to employ. Like, take it to the zenith, but don't let him throw 15-yard penalties on us. So anyway, thought it was an accurate way to look at it, and don't get us in trouble, but give everything you got.
Yeah.
So
yeah, take it to the Magnavox. Take it to the Samsung.
To the Zenith.
Take it to the L.
I think we had a Zenith at our house.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, we had a Zenith. Our first color television was a 24-inch Zenith color television. This is back in the mid-'60s, the second half of the mid-'60s.
Yeah.
And it was about this big, and we thought it was the greatest thing we've ever seen.
Of course.
It's not even as big as our air fry oven now, air fryer on the side of the on the side. But it was the greatest thing we'd ever seen because everything was in living color on NBC and CBS and ABC. But yeah, you wanted to throw something else in there. Go ahead.
You were talking about Ian Moore and what he's maybe proven in the spring and getting it going. Hensman said this guy is insanely dominant in the weight room.
Yeah.
That's got to help you.
Oh,
that's got to hold you in good stead when the Baines and the Mesidors come calling. As
long as your feet get you there.
Boom.
Don't be grabbing.
No.
Don't take whatever that was Arthur Smith said totally to heart, because you really don't want the ref, because referees change from game to game on how they call things. The referee, the center judge, all those kind of guys, the umpires. You don't want to leave it in there. You don't leave the flag in their hands or whether they're going to call it or not. That's for sure. He just meant that, man, take it to the limit, baby.
Yeah.
One more time.
Yeah.
Take it to your part is woo.
Oh,
take it
I'm
to the limit. That's what he wants these guys doing, man. Play with violence, play viciously, approach every game like every play like it's a boxing match. Win the hand game, win the hand battle, and you win the war. And make sure you're always got your feet where they need to be. Sounds pretty basic when you put it like that. But when the other guy's doing things, when the punching bag is coming across your face and another punching bag is coming in behind him, and you go, uh-oh, that punching bag just ran right by me. It's called awareness. As even Edric Houston was talking about today, Ohio State's three technique defensive tackle, who didn't have as good a season as he wanted last year because it started off with him getting an injury on the almost the first play of preseason camp. That was ridiculous. He basically hyperextended his knee and was never in his mind 100%. But the bottom line is 90% of the game is played between the ears. The other 10% is what you work on from a physical standpoint. But 90% is not being surprised. The game being played almost in slow motion in your brain. When a team's running a stunt in front of you in the middle of the offensive line, and the defense is, you got a guy digging here and another guy coming over the top, or the defensive end coming from outside and coming in the A gap. Where'd he come from? When you think you've picked up stuff, you've got to see so much stuff in front of you and be aware of it. And you can't just go back to the sideline and go, well, my responsibility was this. Well, no, your responsibility changed as the play ensued. Yeah. When you've got that, that's what Tyler Bowen's talking about. You've got to have guys in there. It's not so much their heads on a swivel, their eyeballs are on swivels. And so is their brain. You've got to adapt in split seconds.
Yeah. You
can't let guys take running shots at your running backs or your quarterback. And that's where they want to get to. And it sounds, but that's the essence of football.
Yeah.
That's what makes you an elite team, is when your offensive line, because really when you think about it, you can outscore people.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody talks about the defense did enough last year to win those two games. Yeah, from a score standpoint, you can look at it that way, but Ohio State had the lead in both of those games.
Right.
So the defense got scored on, and the offense didn't reciprocate, but the Ohio State offense didn't reciprocate, but you had the lead in the game, and you didn't win the game. So everybody has something to answer for with the way those last two games went down last year.
I'm surprised what you said, but I wasn't at your tape. We spread out and we talked to different players, but Edric said he never got back really to 100.
Yeah, in his mind, he never got there.
Yeah,
never got back to where he felt like he was probably
Day
going
one.
into preseason camp.
Yeah,
because whenever you get hurt, then there's if you're a human being, we're going to play sound from him next week.
Yeah,
you're a human being. Of course, you're cautious.
Sure.
And then you have a little bit of a doubt. And then should I push it? Should I? It's like when you get your race car fixed in the pits. Well, wait a minute. They just fixed it in the pits. They spent 2 weeks getting it ready for the race, and now they fixed it in the pits. Should I lean on that right front tire? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And how much time am I going to miss if I push it?
But that's the point. Football today, the upper level, the elite level of football is played in a split-second environment. You stood there and watched that Student Appreciation Day practice when just if somebody brought you in, you'd never seen football before.
Yeah.
And you're standing there behind the offensive line and Julian saying and stuff, and you just see the vicious nature of what's going on in front of you.
The pursuit.
Forget about wanting to be there. Think about a quarterback. That's what he has to deal with on a constant basis is there are guys hell-bent over there to knock him into tomorrow.
Every stinking play.
Yeah. So,
that's something.
And your job, like
and fans
Tyler Bowen was talking about today, the offensive line's job is to make everybody else's job a lot easier to do.
So we can operate, as he put it.
Yeah, operate. Because you want to run your offense. You don't want to run what the defense is dictating to you, saying, you're not going to run the ball today. Now what are you going to do?
Yeah. What's your will?
The last thing you want to be as an offense in a big-time game, because you can be predictable against some opponents, but the last thing you want to be is predictable. And so in a great offensive line, believe it or not, keeps you from being predictable. But I just fell off my, as Earl Bruce used to call it, I just fell off my soap opera over here, my soapbox, talking about this stuff. Anything else you want to touch on before we go?
I think you have crystallized my thoughts once again.
I will say this. Good luck to Mike Vrabel. Who knows where everything settles out.
Yeah.
From that whole what would you call it? It's not is that a scandal? I don't know if it's a scandal.
I think she called it an
I think one of the scandals going on there is people taking pictures of you in private.
Yeah.
When you think you're in a private place. But the other thing is, well, what were you doing there? You know what I mean? What's that old line? Don't do anything that you wouldn't want somebody to see you doing. Live your life that way. That's hard to do.
Yeah. What do you do? Right.
But it is true. Everybody's got a camera.
That's it.
Everybody has got a camera, and it could be people who aren't stalking you. It could just be people who happen to be where you are at the time. And if you're famous, they're going to find you. And too bad.
Yeah, but
she lost her job. Well,
yes,
she resigned over it from the Athletic, and then Mike Vrabel is yet to really answer questions about it. But there have been obviously many more worse things than that have happened to people. But we are in a PR society, a marketing society. We'll see where that goes. But anyway, we'll be back Friday. I'm going to talk about what Ohio State's looking for in the spring game, what you can expect sort of to see, but then how it's going to be run. And, you've all heard probably by now what Ryan Day wants, but might as well play it so you're not surprised when they're not running every trick play they have in their book.
No, that won't be.
The great thing is in the spring games now, you don't have to worry about a scout because there will be coaches there from other teams. You got to figure, or people from other walks of life. Because anybody can buy a ticket and go in the spring game, and you can, by the way, watch it on television.
I was about to say it's televised.
So we'll see where that goes. But the bottom line is you don't have to worry about them being there or watching on television and scouting those backup players they'd like to have on their squad starting in May.
Yeah.
Because there is no May transfer portal anymore.
Portal, baby.
The transfer portal was in January, which made it tough on Ohio State and some other teams this year who were in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But yeah, times they keep changing in major college sports, but especially major college football.
Yeah.
Clay,
10 things happening at once.
Clay, always a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, brother.
And
until then.
Yeah. I know you're used to giving the sign off, being the
it's
doing that
baby.
for 40 or 50,000 years. But until Friday, ladies and gentlemen, when we're going to talk about the spring game,
we will,
and what to watch for. Well, you may not, but I will, and whatever guest I can get on with me, because you'll be on. No, you know what? No, we'll work that out because you're going to be there at the stadium on Saturday.
I'll get 3 sentences.
No, you're going to get more than that in. We may tape the whole show there on location.
There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tim May. That's Clay Hall. This has been the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. And by the way, check us out, the Clay May Report that we post after pretty much every practice. On social doesn't take up very much time on your social media, basically X, formerly known as Twitter. And of course, you can listen to this podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and maybe a couple other places. But you don't have to just watch our ugly faces. You can listen to the sounds coming out of our ugly faces and not be seeing us. But for Clay Hall, I'm Tim May. We will see you next time.